And we are so delighted to welcome you in on this very busy Wednesday here in the nation's capital. Thanks for making us a part of your day. It would appear we now know who will face off for president this summer and fall. Hillary Clinton so dominated Bernie Sanders in Super Tuesday balloting that his campaign now seems to be on borrowed time. Strong momentum going forward for the former Secretary of State. On the GOP side, meantime, Donald Trump swamped his opponents, winning impressively in the South and in New England, and leaving the party he hopes to lead shaken to its core. We will talk in just a moment with the former head of the Republican National Committee, Michael Steele, but joining us now our special panel. Scott Thuman is our chief political correspondent. Professor Stephen Farnsworth is an author. He teaches political science at the University of Mary Washington, and reporter and political analyst Rafi Williams is former deputy press secretary for the RNC. Welcome all. Thanks very much for coming in. Scott, let's begin with you. We are, to say the least, not talking about or looking at the normal run of events as Donald Trump scores victory after victory. We're talking about someone who is winning and winning impressively and drawing new people in, but at the same time, he is setting off major alarm bells for elected officials, party leaders, and those we refer to as the establishment. What do you make of all this?
Yeah, well, look, that panic isn't going to go away anytime soon from the establishment, from those who don't like the idea of a Trump candidacy. At the same time, it was interesting last night, we heard, of course, the setting was very different where he was at Mar-a-Lago. He wasn't talking to a rally of supporters. He was talking mostly to reporters, but we heard him talk about coalescing, about time for us all to get together and get behind one unified front here as Republicans. He is suddenly, at least at that moment, trying to sound much more presidential than we heard at past events. The difficulty now is if you're Marco Rubio or you're Ted Cruz, what really is your path? Ted Cruz, he can continue to brag that, hey, look, I'm the only candidate who's been able to beat Donald Trump, and that was till about midnight last night when Marco Rubio said, why won Minnesota? But numbers-wise, it doesn't look great for either one of them.
This rhetorical pivot we're now hearing from Trump could easily be a preview of things to come as the numbers track so powerfully in his direction. Scott and the panel stand by for just a moment. We are joined now by the former head of the Republican National Committee, the former Lieutenant Governor of Maryland, Michael Steele. Lieutenant Governor Steele, Mr. Chairman, thank you very much for your time. Great having you aboard.
It's good to be with you.
This is, by any definition, by any sense of things, a remarkable moment in American politics. Are we, right now, as some have suggested, witnessing a hostile takeover of the Republican Party?
Yeah, a hostile takeover by the base. Exactly. You know, it's just, people need to stop with the crazy rhetoric and stop with the hyperbole and the screaming and shouting about Donald Trump and understand that this is something that's been in the making for quite some time. And it goes back literally since the end of the Reagan administration, where the party began to search its soul and try to update, if you will, conservatism for the 21st century. And that's the struggle. That's part of what's going on. And a lot of this, and you've heard this before, Bruce, is born out of the reality that the establishment types have taken their base for granted. They've not paid attention to them. They've lied to them about various policy proposals that were going to get passed, things that were going to get done. You know, conservatives look at the last 7 years and they go, okay, so let me get this straight. We give you the Senate, we give you the House, and you give us Obamacare, you give us a Supreme Court that institutionalizes gay marriage, you give us, so you're going down the list of issues that really tick off conservatives. The leadership in the party have done the best job of making that list, a reality, more so than anything else. So this is the moment. This is the germination of the seed that we've seen being planted for a long time now, and they're going to have to work their way through it.
What do you see happening in the days and weeks ahead? Folks are clearly mobilizing. It is quite potentially too late. Nonetheless, efforts, I'm sure your phone rings 24/7. I can only imagine what sort of conversations you're having with the people, with your network, the network that in particular you developed when you were head of the party for those years. You know, what do you expect to happen? Will there be a fully orchestrated, formal, and funded effort to offer an alternative to the two people we now think are going to be the nominees of their party, Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton?
Yeah, I think you're right about that, Bruce. What you're going to see is a panicked reaction to what's happening. You know, all the things, all the metrics and indices that we've used in the past to measure the success of a presidential candidate don't apply to Donald Trump regarding, for the base, for the establishment types. So, he wins 3 of the first 4 states. That doesn't make him the front runner. That doesn't make him, the putative nominee. He has a clean sweep 7 out of 12 states, and for Super Tuesday, that's not enough. So you're seeing this panic reaction. Anybody but Trump, never Trump, hashtags jumping up all over the place. All of that is just a lot of empty motion, because at the end of the day, you can't escape the fact that votes are being given to Trump by people who call themselves Republicans, who call themselves conservatives, and they're doing so for a reason. And instead of trying to react and figure out how to dump Trump, they need to understand what's going on. Because even if they're successful, Bruce, let's say they prop up Rubio, they prop up Cruz, they prop up Mitt Romney or anybody else at the national convention. Where do you think all those Trump voters are going to go come November? You think they're just going to line up and go, oh, okay, so we played in a fair process. We went out to the polls and organized, voted. You got to the convention, and the guy that we wanted for president, because you didn't, you put somebody else up, you cheated the process, and now you want us to fall in line? I don't think that's going to happen. And again, it's a complete and total misreading of what the base is saying and what the base is doing right now. You may not be happy with it, but you daggone better try to understand it, because this only gets worse, not better, if you do this the wrong way.
You have spent so much of your time and energy trying to grow the party. And, of course, there was the document, the report referred to by some as the autopsy that followed
Right.
Mitt Romney's loss to Barack Obama in 2012. I presume you watched live, or if you didn't see it live, you saw it on tape pretty soon after Donald Trump's conversation with Sunday morning talk show hosts about support coming his way from the notorious David Duke. Given your efforts to grow the party, how did that exchange hit you?
It was ugly, inappropriate, wrong-headed, all of those words. I don't know what he was thinking. I get, okay, fine, the earpiece didn't work, okay. But whenever you hear the words KKK and David Duke in any sentence, no matter what the question is, the answer is no or hell no. This is not something you sit there and ponder, get back to me with a list. The reality of it is, it was a moment that Donald Trump missed. And yes, he had disavowed and denounced David Duke in an earlier interview on that Friday. Mm-hmm. But the fact of the matter is, yeah, you're the guy that the press is going to keep coming back different ways, different angles, asking you the same question. And you have to be consistent and you have to be true. And if that's how you really feel, then okay, fine, we need to know that. But I thought it was a missed opportunity for him, and it helped create further opportunities for those who are plotting against him to lay the case down against him in a way that will make this thing churn a little bit differently. And if you realize afterwards what some of his supporters were saying, this goes back to the point I just made, they took it in stride. And so the fact of the matter is, his supporters are firmly behind him. But Donald has to now begin to build the bridge to the rest of the party, and understand that if this thing is going to go the way he hopes it does, he's got to be seen as a leader for all Republicans, of course, but also a leader for the country. And he really has to begin to demonstrate that. I think he tried to do a little bit of that last night with the setup. Instead of doing the rally, to do the press conference, just sort of tone it down, bring it down. I thought the way he handled some of those questions from the press was a lot better than he has in the past.
We're not going to take up too much of your time, but let me hit you with 2 other quick things if I can, and we appreciate your being with us, Michael Steele.
Sure.
Should some of the candidates who have yet to generate any traction, put any wins on the board, is this their moment to get out so that some additional coalescing can occur?
Well, yeah, I think on paper that's the plan, and you hope everyone is down with the plan and they do it. But the reality of it is, when you make the time investment and the personal investment to run for president, you just don't walk away from that dream easily. If you're someone like a Marco Rubio or Ted Cruz, even a Ben Carson, who's still amassing money, getting cash coming in the door, you want to stay in the fight. But you have to recognize that there are consequences by your being in the fight at this point. And I do not subscribe to the view that if, 3 or 4 people get out and it's down to Donald Trump and somebody else, that all of those votes that were with those other candidates suddenly go to the guy who's up against Trump. You have to realize that Donald Trump is somebody's second choice for those guys as well. So he will get some of that vote. And again, it doesn't solve your problem because the base is sending a very clear message to the rest of the party. We're tired. We're not taking anymore. We're going to control this outcome, and we're going to put in who we want, not who you want.
I'll combine the last 2 thoughts into one, Mr. Chairman. Politico has a story. Put it on the screen. Share the headline with you and the folks at home. Eli Stokel's, talented reporter for Politico, referring to the day the Republican Party ruptured. Growing resistance to Trump could splinter GOP beyond repair. And we're hearing, of course, talk of a brokered convention, something that is talked about, that would make for a great time. Any cycle, a brokered convention
Sure.
would be great for reporters. Is it right to take this kind of talk now a bit more seriously, given the clearly unusual environment we're in?
No, I think, look, it's a real possibility. It's the new reality that's beginning to set in. I think how both the candidates and the party handle that is immensely important because watching, listening, and very much a part of this process are the rank-and-file Republicans who will show up in Cleveland at that convention. And if there's any monkey business, if there's any inkling that this thing is fixed, if there's any effort to strip away support votes for Donald Trump that he's earned through the electoral process, you're looking at Armageddon. You're looking at a fight unlike anything you've ever seen before. And whoever then walks out of that convention as a nominee will be damaged beyond repair going up against Hillary Clinton this fall because that base will have its final retribution at the ballot box in November. As we saw in 2012, as we saw in 2008, they come to play and they play hard. So that the folks who are going to be managing this convention and trying to, work their magic to get Donald Trump out, you do so at your own peril.
Former RNC chairman, former Maryland Lieutenant Governor Michael Steele. Mr. Steele, as always, we are grateful for your time. Thank you very much for calling.
You got it, my friend.
Hope we didn't go too long. Thank you again.
No, you're good.
Talk to you soon. We appreciate it. To our panel quickly, we're way up on the clock, but Stephen Farnsworth, Rafi Williams, Scott Thuman, react to any of what we just heard, a remarkable set of comments from the man whose job it was, and the GOP had a pretty good run of things when Michael Steele was in command. Professor Farnsworth, your reaction to what we just heard?
Well, I think what you have is a recognition of the political reality that we have right now. The truth is that Donald Trump is a force that will not be denied within this party. Those basic voters, in this first real national day of getting a pulse of American Republicans, he did very, very well. And it seems to me that if there is an effort to try to unseat Donald Trump in these later races, that's going to be a significant problem, not only at the convention, but I also think that Donald Trump himself will not be denied. He has an out in the agreement with the RNC that if he is not given a fair shake, then he is not bound to stay out of the race. And I cannot imagine Donald Trump, who loves the spotlight like no one we've seen in public life in a long time, would give it up.
Rafi?
If he loses that convention, though, he can't make the ballot in a number of states, and that would be a problem for a third-party bid. But I think that what you're seeing, though, is voters in the Republican exit polling say, throw them out. We don't want an out. We want an outsider, not an establishment candidate. And that's what Donald Trump's tapping into so well, and that's why he's able to succeed. I think any notion that the party tries to uproot that or change it is a mistake and would be detrimental, even worse than Trump actually taking the nomination.
Can't imagine being head of the RNC now, Scott Thuman. What a task. This is really, the phrase uncharted waters is overused. We are in uncharted
Sure,
waters.
and look, we have had elections that are considered chaos. I mean, you look back at 1968, I mean, there are plenty of presidential cycles that if we were really present in them at this moment, we'd go, this is crazy. This does also qualify to some degree as crazy. But at the RNC, sure, there's going to be a lot of hand-wringing. But what I'm told from some insiders is it's not so much the organization that is panicking or that's upset about the Donald Trump candidacy. It's those elders in the party, the people who are very used to having the ring kissed and being solicited for support and endorsements and donations and fundraising. They don't like the fact that Donald Trump hasn't come to them. And that's one more reason there's this kind of bitter taste in the mouths of some people on the Republican side. But to Professor Farnsworth's point, look, no one is going to deny Donald Trump, and Donald Trump will make sure that doesn't happen.
A remarkable moment to be sure. We'll take a quick break here. We're back though with more News Talk for a busy Wednesday right after this.